So you've had the problem, I've had the problem.
You're asking me to get into
Yeah. Yeah.
password. Did you get
I can't remember. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting on the 7th of March, 17th of March. Just to let everyone know that the meeting is being recorded, as they usually are. We have got two apologies for absence that I'm aware of, Councillor John Gurney and Councillor Wendy Bater. Do we have any other apologies for absence? Okay. So, I've done okie dokie immediately. Right. Okay, I'm going to try not to say okie dokie too much this time, but we'll see how it goes. Do we have any declarations of interest? Right. Okay. We have, see, it's worse, isn't it? Do we have any members of the public to speak? We do not. Okay, are we all happy for me to sign the minutes of the previous Finance and General Purposes Committee as an accurate record?
Yeah.
All in favour?
Yeah.
Okay, on to item 90, which is the action tracker. Who wants to talk about the action tracker?
There are 3 actions on the action tracker. 3 very slowly for some annoying reason. We will look at, it's important to talk with you now, starting with the anniversary edition in July. Just trying to calculate how much space we've got for that. The exhibition in this building, the History Society developing a plan to provide a living exhibition as part of Heritage Open Day on a Saturday in September. So rather than lots of exhibition boards, there'll be people in different rooms who will talk about different periods of history and explain the history of the building. It's awesome. And the carbon assessment report is on the agenda, and in the future carbon assessment will be reported as part of the compliance.
Okay, thank you very much, Town Clerk. Do we have any comments or thoughts on the action tracker? Councillor Tomorrow?
Thank you. I was just going to clarify on the exhibition. I do know that we have, I don't know if there's ideas of things. I mean, you said it's not going to be a display per se. I thought that we were going to have some kind of display. For example, things like we had actually had a resident that gave me a booklet which contained the what do you call it? It's a Dunstable something charter. Can't remember exactly what's called now. Are we going to display stuff like that to allow residents to actually read, you know, like the Marquess Charter? There's different charter that relate to Dunstable dating back to, you know, the 16th century, for example. Is there stuff like that that we want to bring out?
There'll be some items on display, definitely. The charters are on the wall, so partly once you walk someone all the way around the building, you'll show them most of the important documents that people wouldn't normally get to see. So actually, by walking someone around the building, you show them most things. We have got a few things still in the attic that we will bring up to show them.
Okay, I think that would be a really good idea to actually display for, you know, for the people, the residents to come up in this exhibition, actually have a look at, actually read some of the history. Like, just thinking about the Marquess Charter, for example, one of the conversations that we have is quite interesting to actually see how those documents was presented. So I think that's something that, you know, if more people need to see it, we could.
Let schools know that this is available as well, directly, so that maybe they can be small groups. So the History Society are going to run it, so it'll be up for them to work out the booking process and what their capacity is.
Okie dokie. I did it. Okay, right. Thank you. That was excellent. Moving on to item 91, which is the finance report and the new financial regulations. Over to Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. So members, good evening. You've received the finance report updated to the finances as at 31st of January, as mentioned in the report. So I'll just run through the recommendations and just a brief overview. So 1.1, to note the revenue budget position up to the 31st of January 2025 is currently looking at an underspend of as at the 31st of January of 233,000, of which 205,000 has been approved as commitments as in previous committee meetings. Then moving on to 1.2, to note the current balance of the council's earmarked reserves as at the 31st of January. That's attached as an appendix to this report. And 1.3, to consider and approve the amended financial regulations. So the reasoning for, obviously, we review the financial regulations annually. Last year, towards the end of last year, we received NACS, so National Association of Local Councils, model financial regulations, which are almost identical to ours, but the points are in the categories are in a different place. So we've aligned our financial regs to the model, which will better assist us with amendments going forward. Just as part of those amendments, there wasn't anything that we didn't have already. There was a new note, so as noted in 8.2 of the report, anything in bold text that was in the financial regulations are legislative, so we cannot change them. Anything else we can amend to better suit our council's needs. But as part of the bold text, noted at 8.3 was just an addition. So members should note the following: that any member with council tax unpaid for more than 2 months is prohibited from voting on the budget or precept by section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act of 1992 and must disclose at the start of the meeting that section 106 applies to them. And then in addition to that, 8.4, a financial regulation that officers are putting forward as an amendment is the withdrawal from any earmarked reserve shall be agreed by the relevant committee. So where a committee are currently, the grounds committee or community services are requesting funds to be spent from their earmarked reserves, officers are recommending that that committee approves that expenditure rather than referencing up to finance each time. Obviously, anything that's corporate coming from the general reserve will of course come to finance. So that's the two amendments from the financial regs. The one obviously is legislative, one is an officer recommendation. And then just moving on to 1.4, to recommend to the council the appointment of the internal auditor for the financial year 25-26, so from April this year. Officers are suggesting that we have one more year with the existing internal auditor. Obviously, we've got a long-standing good relationship with us. They know our council very well. They have indicated that they will be continuing for one further year, and at which time we will go out to tender for alternative providers for that service. Obviously, it's quite a specific service for local authorities, but also in line with us continuously reviewing our financial systems and what we use to hold our accounts. So that will line up quite nicely with that. And then 1.5, to note the current investments as shown in the report.
Thank you, Lisa. That's very helpful. I've already got Councillor Henderson who wanted to make a point.
Ask a question of clarification, if I may. So the second of those, where you're saying that if a committee wants to approve use of the reserves, that they can do that without Finance and General Purposes Committee.
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking the Finance and General Purposes Committee is the sort of final committee for looking at after the budget as a whole and then making those recommendations to full council? So the reason I'm asking this question is whether those individual decisions could affect the overall financial position or the budget setting process that we're responsible for.
So full council is still responsible for agreeing earmark reserves in the first place. So, for example, the full council would agree an earmark reserve for events, if that's what wanted to happen. And then what we're saying is once that money's been set aside just for events, then the community services could agree to spend that money on events. So once it's in an earmark reserve, that doesn't affect future budgets or anything else, because by putting the earmark reserve, you're putting it aside to be spent just on that purpose. So no, it doesn't affect overall budgets or the general work of this committee.
Okay, thanks very much for the clarification. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions or points? Councillor Kamara?
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to come to the same point, but I think it's slightly clearer. As long as, just to come back to your point, as long as the idea is just for what's been reserved, I think it's reasonable to say, okay, don't come back to finance and general purpose. But I do worry about the oversight, because I think the purpose for this is to create layers of oversight. Where a committee has made a decision, like community services made a decision, that's just that one committee that's make that decision. But there's no oversight, the second layers of oversight to the financial, sort of element of it. The decision making of the finance element is currently proposing to be taken away. I do worry about it. I think we need to consider carefully whether it's the right thing to do to take away oversight. Yes, you have your oversight as officers to recommend that this money should be spent, but what is wrong with the top level of oversight is my concern. I don't know if there's any need to do it per se, because I think it's necessary to always have double layers of oversight to make sure whatever decision this council make, nobody will come around and say, I didn't know about it, because it's been to the set committee, then it's come to the finance committee to ratify or to agree to it somewhat. I think that's a necessary procedure. I would leave it to the committee to decide.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brennan?
So I think first of all, it is just use of earmarked reserves that are already for that committee. I think it's right that the committees that are in control of those reserves should have control over those reserves. I think we're only 18 strong councillors and we all get the agendas. We all know what's happening or have the opportunity to know what's happening in each committee before it happens. So if we have any strong feelings about the use of any of those reserves, we have ample opportunity to come to the council and say, I don't think it's a good idea that you should spend this reserve that has been allocated already to be spent for that specific purpose. So take, for example, there's a fencing fund in grounds. If we want to repair a fence at Mentmore, for example, as we did, we can do that because we have a fencing reserve. I don't think using the fencing reserve that is earmarked for repairing fences is going to bankrupt the council or cause major issues in the grand scheme of the finances of this council. So I'm very happy to make these changes because I think it will make things a lot easier and a lot quicker and and it'll make it nicer for the residents who complain about their fences and then see them repaired in good speed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brennan. I've got Councillor Crawley.
Thank you, Chair. Very, very similar to Councillor Brennan. I think that it's a layer, I don't know if it's the right terminology, but it's a layer of bureaucracy that doesn't need to be there if the money's already kind of earmarked. If it's been agreed already that that is money for a committee to use, then that's fine, as long as it doesn't mean that other money can be drawn in and kind of additional money can be earmarked without the oversight that Councillor Tamara is concerned about, then I don't see an issue. But if this allows for extra money to be earmarked without oversight, then I've got an issue. But if it's just priorly earmarked, then I've got no issue with it. I think it's sensible.
Thank you. That is my understanding, that it's essentially just about a committee that has oversight over a reserve, saying we can take money out of. Do we want to take money out of that reserve as a committee? Yes, we do. We want to repair the fence or whatever it may be. So I would be in favour personally. Did anyone else want to speak on this?
It's just an efficiency, isn't it, that we're putting in place, so it's fine.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Atwell.
Yeah, I was just going to say from the comments made, I think, you know, it's fair point to say that we do need scrutiny on it, but you know, it's also a fair point to say that we will get the agendas we can go through. If people really object to something, then they have got that right to be able to turn around and say so, or we can come along to the meeting that you're not part of that committee, or get someone else to raise it. And so there's a mechanism there. So I'm quite happy that the scrutiny it takes place, and it does allow to streamline, you know, and take a lot of the weight off of things that perhaps don't need to be looked at in quite such detail.
Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Anyone else? Okay. Well, in that case, I suppose we go to the recommendations. So we to note 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 we need to consider and approve. So do we go for some proposes? I'm happy to propose 1.3.
Second.
Second. All in favour? Any against? Abstentions? Okie dokie. That's unanimous. 1.4. To recommend full council to full council. Do we need to vote on this one? Yeah, okay, I'm happy to propose that. Okay, all in favour? Okay, thank you very much. Cool. On to our next item, which is item 92, compliance of facilities report. That's you, Lisa.
So just an overview on the corporate compliance facilities. Update, so briefly updating on Grove House. So as you can see from the report, we are trying to progress with the rear works for the building. We're actually waiting for our contractors to come in again tomorrow, Wednesday, to give us an update. They've been away for last week. And then on 1.2, there is a report in the confidential section of this meeting, but just to note that you may have noticed if you've walked around the building in recent weeks and gone in the toilets and the kitchen upstairs, that we've stripped back some of the plaster to do some investigative works, or we haven't, as the contractors have, and obviously have uncovered some worrying, concerning cracks and gaps in the wall to the front of the building. So that's a separate issue to the report that's coming later on the committee. The external works is one job. The concerning cracks are obviously concerning. So we have looked into professional advice. We have, as I've mentioned, for the rear works, we've got our contractors coming in tomorrow to assess it, and then for us to understand what next steps we need to take to understand fully what the nature of these cracks and gaps are. So further updates will be given as and when we find out about those. And then just on 1.3, so just to mention that we've now put in the premises licence quite a long process of trying to get the premises licence together, but it's now been submitted to Central Bedfordshire Council. We're just waiting for that to receive. As soon as we receive that, we can put in the application for the wedding licence for Grove House, hopefully Gardens. And then just to mention on the products and procurement, obviously the next item on the agenda is regarding the current tender for the waste, the recommendation to this committee. And then just moving on to the environmental and biodiversity section. So just as shown in the report, briefly outlined that the carbon baseline assessment was the consultant for the carbon baseline assessment reported to the working group back in January, giving an update. I attached the report and the presentation to this report for all members to see. Since then, both our town clerk and chief executive and our head of grounds have received a short presentation on additional that's come up since the carbon based assessment on a presentation on optimising carbon storage using soil and vegetation. So that's something in addition that we are going to look into a lot further to assist us in offsetting carbon emissions in the future. So just to say really that we'll be reporting back to this committee later on in the year about that, hopefully with more of an update and maybe some recommendations nearer the time. I don't know if anybody from the working group wants to give a brief overview, but I think the report kind of covers the main points that were covered by that.
Thank you. So in terms of questions and comments, I've already got 2 hands up. So Councillor Corby.
Thanks for that report, at least all those reports. Got 2 questions. One is, when are we just gonna, at what point financially do we not look at Grove House anymore? It's getting Priory House. But the more we look at it, the more problems we seem to find. Was it not that one?
No.
This one. Oh, this one. It's worse. Can we just stop looking? Can we just leave things?
Once you know, because obviously we needed to look at the water ingress to the building because it's causing us issues. It has done for many years. We can't keep leaving it. It's our building. We have to maintain it. It's council property. So it's that there's a potential risk there that if we leave it any longer, then it will get worse. So I understand completely what you're saying.
What in-house is empty? Couldn't we just move across the road, and it would probably be cheaper than all these repairs that we keep doing?
I'm sure it would.
Sorry, and then the more serious question is on the environmental, I forget what it's called. It's really good. The carbon energy update, really good report. It's a great to see the energy savings that are being made and the differences that the new vehicles are making. One question, it's a long report and I was trying to figure it out myself and I couldn't find it in here. There's a 10% saving on last time. It says in the report, I think it's 10% efficiency is because of Creasy Park. Is that because of Creasy Park, or is that excluding Creasy Park? And we, on top of it, taking that out of the figure, out of the equation, there is still 10% save carbon saving.
I believe it's due to us no longer having Creasy Park in our baseline assessment.
So if Creasy Park was removed, all I couldn't find out is how well the rest of the council did as a percentage as a whole. Like, so,
oh, okay.
We're going to have to get back to you on that.
That's fine. That's fine. If you could, that'd be great. I'd just like to know, the rest of what the efficiency without that was.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that we were waiting for a plan. Yes, they were going to. Yes, at 3.4, it was agreed the consultant would provide a plan. I don't know if we hadn't received it. It might be that it got lost in the losing James, obviously, the compliance manager post. So we're just waiting for an update for.
I mean, it looks great anyway. I mean, all of the locations, Splash Park, Priory House, Grove House, so they've spent less on electricity. We're spending less on the electric vehicles. It's great. So there must be a reduction.
Yeah.
But the 10% just with losing Creasy Park, I think it inflates that figure a little bit, and it makes it sound better than it could be, but it's still good. I'm sure it's still good. Thank you.
Okay, and Jones.
So my concern relates to this building, and when we talk about 1.3 going to get a premises licence, ready to be able to deliver weddings, service weddings. I'm not sure this building, with the situation we're in, are we really truly ready to have it as a wedding venue, knowing that we've got those potential issues, and it might be a conversation for part two. But I'm hugely concerned we're potentially going to advertise this building as a wedding venue, but actually with the creaks and the cracks where the gaps appearing.
Scaffolding in people's photos.
No, it's not that much of a big deal.
Leave it there, probably for part two conversation.
Okay, thank you, councillor Jones. Councillor Tamara.
Maybe we can discuss that later, but I was just literally gonna give the view that it looks scary, but it's not that scary. I think it's something that can be resolved. So let's have some, I'm a skeptic, but I think, you know, looking at, I've seen it myself, and I think we can put some,
Masking tape ain't gonna do it.
no, Martin Step is not going to do it, but we should be a little bit more hopeful on this one. It's not powerhouse. It doesn't look terrible. There's worse building in this town than that. So that's why I'm going to leave it.
Okay, just quickly on the carbon working group. So where we left that was that we came up with there was hope to come up with a couple of actions which will be put to, I believe, the F&GP committee at a future date. And there's been a departure of the officer who was working closely on that. So it notes in 3.7 that at a future point when council has capacity, we will look at those possible options and things that we can do once the fullness of time has been arrived at. So those thinking about carbon neutrality, that's where we are on that. Okay, any other questions or points or thoughts? Okay, in that case, it was an information report, so we can move on to the tender for waste management, which Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. So we put out a tender for management of waste contract services. We've had 2 responses back, which we've scored in some considerable detail. Our waste requirements are quite complicated, so we've got a whole number of venues, different pickups at different times, different kinds of waste. The tenders bid for the core service, but also gave us prices for each of the different types of waste. So the more you have each year, the cost changes, which we've done calculations on. The upshot was that their scores are quite different. So one is 47, one is 74. So rather than go through further detailed process, actually, and that's financial, the difference is financial. The other scores are fairly similar. So on that basis, we'd recommend going ahead with the recommended provider. Happy to go into more detailed conversation, but we'd have to go into confidential session to do that if you want to take that approach.
Okay, does anyone have any questions or thoughts on this matter? Otherwise, then we go to a vote, I suppose. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm happy to propose that we go with the recommendation, as one has got a different value for money. Yeah, Councillor Kudowski has seconded. All in favour? And any against or abstentions? Okey-dokey. Right, moving on to our next one, which is item 94, marketing and communications. Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So social media is progressively seeing an increase in followers. We continue to do a mixture of images and videos and posting either direct to the feed or stories to try and engage our audience and residents. 1.2, if you see the Facebook posts, the top three engaging posts were the wooden sculptures that are all installed, and it's worth noting that this was scheduled on a Thursday at 7 p.m. And then the second most engaging post was about the French market coming to Dunstable, and then the third one was about the living pillars being installed. The top 3 social media Facebook stories were the French market, Street Food Heroes, and a Call in Dunstable cross-shared post. The top 3 Instagram posts were about our new high street banners for the 40th anniversary, overview of the 2025 events, Mother's Day Middle Row Market, and the top 3 Instagram stories were the overview of the 2025 events, Call in Dunstable cross-share post, and about the nominations for the Freeman or Free Women of Dunstable. If you go down to item number 4, we just talk about the websites. The new website is now in the development stage, and the CMS system has now been handed over to the Town Council to start populating content. There's still currently no set official date as when the new website will be launched, because we want to make sure that everything's running as smoothly as possible. Agenda item 5, currently working on a star guide to ensure consistent messaging across all service area and platforms that all officers can work to. And this agenda item number 6, since the report, the April edition is now being designed and is in the final proof stages before print production. As mentioned in the last report, the delivery date will be from the 4th of April. It's worth noting that 3-star coaches have inquired about advertising, but nothing has come of it since the report. Good Oaks Home Care have also inquired about advertising.
That's fantastic. Very good. I enjoyed this immensely. I like that we have this top interactions by post for our social media accounts now. This is quite helpful, and also interesting to see that Facebook does best perhaps when there's a lot of conversation, whereas Instagram is more about, oh, that's nice, and they like it. So yeah, no, thank you. Does anyone have any questions, thoughts, or anything at all? That's the front.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question, which is what happened with the new logo. It's going to be a new logo. Yeah, did I miss what happened, or
the crest will remain.
Yeah, what do you decide you to go? What do you do?
The crest will remain. The only thing that will be updated is the font. So the font style's changing.
Sure. Cool. Have we dropped the idea of going for a different sort of logo thing for the council, or is it coming back?
Members gave a very clear steer of the logo. So the website will use the crest. It will fit what works on the website and social media, but absolutely the crest will be at the forefront of the website.
Sure, cool. Groovy.
Groovy. Okay. Any other questions or thoughts? That's good.
Just one sort of point, I suppose. There was quite a negative response initially to the wooden sculptures. So I sort of stepped in a little bit to sort of direct people to the fact that the town council is here to try and improve the town, and with improvement of the town, we hope to get more businesses coming along, which seems to be overlooked by some of the earlier response to the what a waste of money attitude. So it'd be, I think once all the notices and stuff are in place and explain how you can follow it through the town, that'll be much better. But I think it was a good idea, and so hopefully it will catch on.
Indeed. Anyone else? Councillor Crawley, you look like
Yeah, just very briefly. This is great. It's like great to see more engagement. It's great to see what people are valuing. I just want to follow on very slightly to Councillor Kotarski's comment that when we get funding for stuff from grants and things, I think we should try to make that as clear as possible in these posts to avoid the what a waste of money, because people generally don't understand about kind of where money comes from, and it's not impacting directly their council tax bill, and we can avoid a lot of kind of miscontent with just addressing that straight away in these posts, and especially as we're getting such good figures on our social medias. Other than that, yeah, fantastic to see.
Okay. thank you, everyone. We're straight back to Rachel with the marketing and communications strategy report, which I enjoyed even more than the marketing communications item.
So it's for members to approve the marketing strategy outlined in the report.
Okay. Just to remind members, this is a really good report that runs through potential strategies and ways of working for future communication from the town council. Lots of really good stuff in there. I open the floor to comments, thoughts, questions. Councillor Hollock.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've got no objection to what's there, but I was just wondering that it's obviously Dunstable Town Council, but councillors also communicate, and I'm just wondering if there should be something. I think we did have something about the way that we communicate and the way we sort of behave and so on, but I was wondering if there's anything relevant that could come into here on the council's behalf and how we communicate, because a lot of what's here we would obviously agree with and communicate in as constructive way as possible, but do we need anything from the councillor's point of view in this document? Because councillors are part of Dunstable Town Council.
Sam Gott.
So we have a social media policy which describes how we all communicate, and that goes into councillors' role and our role. This is very much a description of how the council and officers will communicate. So this is you agreeing the tone and the messaging that we will use. I don't think it'd be appropriate for us to tell councillors that level of detail, so we can't tell you what tone of voice you should use and what messaging you should use, because you might well disagree with things. Obviously, what we do always encourage councillors to do when we're putting out all the positive content we do is to share it, reinforce it, comment on it, highlight it. And that's one of the ways we work, because hopefully we're giving you a tool that you can then use to communicate with. But I don't think it would be appropriate for us to try and insist this applies to councillors, because we can't be as constrained with members as we can with the actual works of the organisation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments?
Thank you, Chair. I think given that we don't already have the strategy, it's always really good to have a strategy in place that everybody on the council can work towards. So I think this is really positive. I think it's really clear. It is positive in the things that it's communicating. Clean and Green Town Council, proactive, dynamic, democratic leadership. I think the messages are really positive, and yeah, I like the tone of it.
Great. I've just had a thought, so I'm going to go off the bat like a maverick. I'm aware that WhatsApp has some kind of group communication one-way broadcast service. Have we, as a council, considered that as a way of communicating with residents as well? Just like, oh, there's an event on at the weekend, and you know, we tell a few hundred residents, that sort of thing. Has that been considered before?
It's under investigation.
There we go. I've hit upon a rich scene which is already being investigated. Okay. If we've got no other thoughts or comments, then we can move on to the next item, which is referral reports from other committees. Oh, do we have to approve this?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Vice Chair. Right, I'm happy to propose this. Okay, proposed and seconded. All in favour? Any against? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Okay, right. Attempt number 2, item number 95, referral reports from other committees. Town Clerk, would you like to talk us through this?
Thank you. This has come before you because we budget within the corporate services budget £1,000 for the cost of street parties. Because it's a corporate services budget, but community services staff effectively do the work on it. Community services recommend that we release the budget for that purpose, but they've referred out to this committee to agree that as it's your budget, not community services budget.
Great. Okay. Did anyone want to speak or comment on this? Councillor Mara?
It's good news. Think you know, this will be really good. Yeah, to approve this.
Thank you, Councillor Mara. Councillor Jones?
I know this came from my committee, but I wasn't actually present at the meeting. I was online and I couldn't speak on that night because my IT failed me. And I would have asked the question. It's not a bank holiday, the 80th anniversary of VE Day. The people that work on Thursday, Friday, and potentially the Saturday. Do we actually know that there is an appetite for street parties for up to £1,000 to be spent? Just a question, because we haven't got a specific bank holiday. And I think if I recall the community services record, agenda items, it was specific for Thursday, Friday and Saturday of that week. Normal working days for many, many people.
Do you want to comment, Town Clerk?
Is that a suggestion that we are more flexible on when it will be?
Yeah, because I wonder whether people would actually be looking to do it on the bank holiday on the Monday, the 5th of May, because that is a bank holiday. I think we should be more flexible. Or people might want to do it on the Sunday of the VE Day weekend. If I remember rightly, the com services paperwork said Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay. What's the process here? Do we investigate that and put that back in front of members, or do we?
Well, if we take it as a proposed amendment from Councillor Jones to amend it to be more flexible on dates.
Okay.
Somebody then second for that, we vote the amendment.
Okay.
I just have another question, actually. Would, if somebody were to apply to have a street party, would we need to maybe have a, would we need, for them to qualify for it, would we need to check first of all that they're able to have, that they've got permission from CBC to close their road and stuff like that? Because I know that there's up to 3 hours that they can close the road. Bay Street, is it? So I would imagine that would come under the same thing.
These street party rules, isn't there, for CBC? So
Yeah, so the CBC have already announced that they'll provide, they've got a process for giving people free use of street closures for a street party. So CBC have a process in place for VE Day, and we've got a process we've used the last couple of times we've done it, which worked really well. So use that same process again.
So people wouldn't have to apply for it, they would automatically be able to do it on that.
I think to apply for it, you don't have to pay. But there's still a process to go through.
Right, we're branching off into lots of directions right now. I'm cognizant of that, so I will keep to the order that people have put their hands up in, and then we'll talk about an amendment. So Councillor Richard.
Yeah, it's going to be a similar question. My first question was regarding to what Councillor Jones just raised, that, you know, will we consider moving that to be a weekend or the nearest weekend too? But I don't know when all of the commemorations or general commemorations are going to be, whether it's going to be specifically on the day or the official dates are going to be. So it would be nice to tie it in to get as many people to go as possible. You know, because this, I think, is a really important part, you know, for community spirit. I think it's great for community spirit, this type of thing, and also for understanding and acknowledging our history as well, especially reinforcing it for younger generation and things. I think it's a fantastic idea. So I'm strongly in favour of this. Yeah.
Councillor Crawley.
I think that this is just a no-brainer, really. It's £100 for 10 different parties. It's not a big thing to think about. We shouldn't spend too much time on this. If they've got a street party agreement from CBC, then we allow them to have the money. If they don't have it, we don't. It's not something we should really spend too much time on, I don't think.
Can I just come in? I'm not saying I'm against it in any way.
No, I'm not arguing with that.
It's a pointless exercise on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, when there's no school closures, when there's no bank holiday, people are not going to have street parties on those days. They're going to have them bank holiday Monday, or they're going to have them the Saturday, the Sunday, the weekend when they can all get together. They're not going to be having the talk. I believe the Beacon's being lit on Thursday evening, but that again hasn't been advertised very well. So are people actually aware that this is a big celebration, and are they actually wanting to engage in the celebration? It's not that I don't want to spend the money. It's that widening the opportunity to make sure we maximise on it.
Does it?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Brennan, and then we can discuss the hows and wherefores for a potential amendment.
So do we know? So there was a couple of things. Do we know what the uptake was on this previous years? I'm guessing it was blanket. It worked really well, and all the money was spent and allocated. That's good. So there's nothing. I've read the community service agenda and this referral report, and neither of them specify that it is specifically for VE Day or the times at which that it would be allocated. So just prior to Liz's amendment, is there anything that actually specifies that it has to be on the Thursday or the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday?
So, according to the pageant master, these things, Bruno Peak, the pageant master. There's a whole world you may have to get into. Commemorations will kick off on Bank Holiday Monday, which will see the cenotaph dressed in Union flags and military procession and a fly past in London. So they're seeing it as a 4-day celebration starting Bank Holiday Monday. I see no reason why we shouldn't say the weekend before or after. So at some point in that 9-day period, we'd be happy to support people to do what's appropriate. The Monday, as Councillor Jones pointed out, was also the big lunch. So government is all the big lunch is supporting activities on the Bank Holiday Monday as well, which is all part of the same thing as well. So we would be in line with what everybody else is doing by doing that as well.
Okay, so I think the temperature of the room is that we would like to put this all together in an amendment where it does allow more people to participate on a bank holiday. So happy to support Councillor Jones's amendment. I'm not sure what, I've never done an amendment as a chair before. I don't know what we do. What happens now?
So Councillor Jones proposed an amendment to the recommendation. You've just seconded the amendment to the recommendation.
Well done, mate.
And the amendment to the recommendation was to be more flexible about the days which the council will fund them on. So you now need to take a vote on our council in favour of amending the recommendation, and then we'll vote on the recommendation as amended.
Great. Does everyone understand what we're voting on?
Yes.
One question.
Councillor Podolsky.
Do we still need to include what qualification in the grant will be? i.e. do they need to prove that they've got the road closure, or do we just take their word for it, they get a hold of?
We do have that process in place, but I don't think you need to.
No, it's fine, as long as we've got the process.
Thank you all. So all in favour? Any against? And abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous.
So we've just agreed to amend the recommendation, but now you need to vote on the recommendation.
Right, okay.
Substantive.
So I need to propose this. I do, don't I? It's on the show.
Anybody can.
Okay, would anyone like to propose?
Propose it.
Okay, Councillor Jones. Councillor Hollock, would you like to second? You'll hand this up. Yes. Okay. All in favour of the amended proposal? Any against? Any abstentions? That's unanimous as well. I mean, it's a whirlwind here.
Sure.
Fine. Now we're on to the personnel subcommittee referral. Town Hall, do you want to talk about this one?
The meeting, well, actually, this meeting was chaired by Councillor Jones, was it? So, referrals up from the Personnel Committee. One, that the attached dignity at work policy be recommended by approval for the committee. The second, that the council adopt the safer recruitment policy, which has been amended. And third, so the dignity at work policy, now includes considerations around sexual harassment because we're now legally required to ensure people aren't sexually harassed, so it includes that area. In discussion, the Personnel Committee identified that whilst they were happy to recommend a policy, they noted it didn't really say much about the relationship between officers and councillors, and they felt we need to go away and look at what could be added to it to clarify that area. But rather than delay agreeing it, the proposal was to agree the policy as you have in front of you, but also require officers to go away with the options for adding to it in the future on that vein.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Do we have any thoughts, questions? Councillor Henderson?
I just have one question to ask about the probation period, and I don't know what it has been changed from to. I can see it's a minimum of 6 months. Does that apply to all employees, regardless of their grade and seniority? Just out of interest.
Yes.
Okay. Why did I ask? Because it's unusual to have the same probation period for all staff, irrelevant of their seniority, in my experience.
Quite long.
Hmm?
It's quite long, isn't it?
Well, in some places it's 12 months, depending on the seniority of the role, and also you need a full business cycle to see whether everybody's met their objectives. It was just a question. I'm not suggesting you change it. It was a question of clarification, really. But it's just, yeah.
That's a good question. Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay. I'm happy to support this in its current form as outlined, so happy to propose this. And tomorrow I have to second. Yeah. Okay. All in favour? Any against? Abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. Right, on to the next recommendation from the Personnel Subcommittee. Who would like to just? Oh,
We just voted on both, didn't we?
Just vote.
is there not two? Yes.
Oh, that's both at the same time.
Did I just do both at the same time?
Yeah.
The members could approve.
Done. Fine. Okay, so we're on to item 96, which is reports from outside organisations, starting with Citizens Advice. Councillor Atwell, did you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I've not had any further updates since the comprehensive one, if you remember, I gave last time. So when I went to the board meeting, so I won't have another update to give really until I get the next meeting, which will be in the next cycle. So I'll give a further update then.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Atwell. Dunstable Town Twinning Association. We've got the Mayor and Councillor Hollick.
There's nothing to add since the last report when delegation went over to Horts, which I reported previously somewhere.
Yeah, I remember that you gave that report at 9:35, I think. Okay, but a very good report it was. Right, Hospice at Home. Councillor Bater isn't here, therefore I suppose we suspend that to a future meeting.
Update if you want me to.
Councillor Jones.
They're having a meeting next week. They're in mid-flow of arranging their events for this year to help fundraise for their ongoing activities. They now have 30 volunteers working alongside around 28 clients at the moment. We've just got a new flow of volunteers coming through and will be trained at the end of April. And that's been through some successful writing in the Vine magazine over the last 6 months. So they're going from strength to strength, and they're working with other organisations and groups in the town as well to bring together some of their activities to support one another, Dialogue being one of them. Dialogue now taking some of their volunteers to the clients' houses where the volunteers no longer drive, so they can still proactively volunteer for us.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Okay, on to Ashton Almshouses. That's myself and the town mayor. I don't mind which of us you can go if you wish. Is that?
Wasn't at last meeting.
Were you not? That was just me then. Okay, let's see if I can remember. From what I recall, it was lots of general good news. Everything was running smoothly. It wasn't a big decisions-y style meeting. The best news I can remember was that there are now motion sensitive lights outside the building, and the residents really like that because it doesn't light up their rooms all night. And that was my request, so I felt it was a little victory. Apart from that, that's all of note that I can remember from that. In which case we can move on to Ashton Schools, which is also me and Councillor Hollick. I wonder if Councillor Hollick remembers more than I do.
Well, once again, I'm sure I might have said something before, but we did visit Man's Head to look and see how they'd spent the money that we were giving them as a result of the sale of the middle school. They've been extremely positive about what they've been able to do. They are making a notice which reflects the fact that they have had money from the Ashton Schools Foundation, which is good. I think they're coming to an end of spending the money. Going round, we were very aware of the improvements that have been made. And indeed, I think really the former head, because I think the head's changed now, was very pleased that there had been a substantial change in the facilities and the appearance of the school. So it's all good news. We haven't been round to the St Peter's Lower School, whatever we call it now. Not recently anyway. I did go round some while ago, but they too are spending some money from the sale of the Ashton's middle school. So good news all round for those two schools in particular.
Councillor. On to Judy's Foundation, which is Councillor Brennan.
No update since the last meeting, Chair.
Councillor Brennan. Paul's Land Charity, which is Councillor Jones.
We are just about to obviously enter into the Easter period where we will hand out money to approximately 80 residents who are entitled to the annual Maundy Thursday money. So we'll come together in this building to do that on Maundy Thursday morning. Councillor Hollick and I and the other trustees do that.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. And last but not least, Dunstable and District Scout Council Executive, Councillor Kotarski.
Thank you, Chair. So the Scout Group, District Group are on top of health and safety, keeping that all up to date. They've got a new website, which one of most websites has its teething problems, but we're getting there. And the key announcement is obviously the St George's Day Parade Sunday, when there will be marching through the town to St Mary's Church, where they reaffirm their duty to the King.
Thank you, Councillor Kotarski. Councillor Jones had a question, point, thought.
No, you've missed Lockington Charity and Loud.
Fine.
I was going to say.
Oh, no, so I have. Okay, well, thank you, Councillor Kotarski. On to Lockington Charity and Marsh Charity.
So these are the almshouses in the ladies' lodges in Church Street. You'll note that their external meeting work has now been completed, and they've had some tree works completed by Central Beds Council as the branches were touching the side of the property and onto the roof line. In addition, the ladies had raised concern about the fencing that had appeared in the Old Palace Lodge car park area, and with the support of Councillor Eugene Gent and a couple of other councillors, we've now been able to have that lowered to half its height. The people that are using the facility aren't particularly happy because it obviously now exposes their vehicles that they are storing in that yard, but it wasn't conducive to the street scene, and it was out of in the conservation area. It wasn't permissible. In addition to that, we've got an empty property at the moment that we're refurbishing in line with the new health and safety steps that the organisation are following, and that'll be going out for a new tenant to be identified for in due course.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Please forgive me for almost missing out that. It was no slight intended. Okay, right, thank you everyone. Then we're on to item 97, which is motion to exclude the press and public. Do we have any proposers? And a second by Councillor Potarski. All in favour? Any against?